Is it better to be passive aggressive or active aggressive? Or is it better to just not be aggressive at all? About a year ago, I did a video about passive aggressive behavior, and surprisingly, very much unexpectedly, it became one of my most watched videos even to this day. And it's interesting because it's a little bit of a departure of what I normally talk about, which is a lot about NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. But I had been the victim of passive-aggressive people. And I also, even in the video, admitted that in times I've acted passive-aggressively. And the truth is, I don't know anyone who hasn't. Even if you're not a passive-aggressive person, sometimes we have to go and try something just to know that it's not for us. But I talked about how I kind of got caught up in the whole passive-aggressive behavior. Somebody was treating me that way who I was in a relationship with, and so I was trying to win. And so I was treating them passive-aggressively, and finally a friend of mine just pointed it out and said, you know, that's really passive-aggressive. And I was like, oh my God, he's right. Like, I'm acting that way. I've turned into something that I despise. I don't want to be that person. Even if someone else is treating me that way, I don't want to be that person. Now, the interesting thing about this too is, in addition to many of you who left great comments and saying things like, wow, this has given me so much clarity, and now I can recognize when other people are treating me in passive-aggressive ways, and now I know what to do about it. I had some interesting comments of people basically saying that, yeah, they're passive-aggressive, and they think it's a valid tactic, especially against a bully. And my response to that was, I don't necessarily disagree. I don't want to say that passive-aggressiveness as a tactic should never be used. I think everything has its place, even things that we, in general would think that should never exist. You never know the context. And so when you're in the situation of being bullied, I actually agree that it's possible that a passive-aggressive tactic can be appropriate. However, you don't want to get caught up in that, because this being passive-aggressive or acting in passive-aggressive ways does damage to yourself over time. Maybe if you have to do it in response to something and it's like a one-time thing or an isolated thing, you're probably okay. But if you get in the habit of doing it, it does a lot of damage to yourself. It's destructive. It's destructive behavior, and it's just not something you want to engage in. As time has passed and I've seen your comments, I realized that I've had more ideas about passive aggressiveness and aggression in general. And so that's what this video is about. And in general, it's about making this whole thing about passive aggression clear, and also about understanding aggression in general, because I don't think it's something that's well understood, at least by the average person. Before I go deeper into this, if you find yourself liking this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button so you can get these videos on a regular basis. And as I do with every video, yes, I'm giving something away for free. Check the description right here down below if you're a little impatient and you can't wait till the end of the video to have me describe what it is. I was reading Robert Greene, one of my favorite authors. I was reading The Laws of Human Nature. It's an amazing book. I really think that he is a great voice for realistic personal development and self-improvement. He takes a lot of criticism because he talks a lot about the dark side of human nature as well as the positive side. I think he gives a good balance of both. He really is wanting to move this whole thing in a positive direction, but he gets accused of teaching people how to do things they shouldn't, and I don't agree with that. But what I was realizing when I was reading a section about aggression, passive aggressiveness, and overt aggression, he basically says that aggressiveness or aggression is part of our nature as human beings. And I was sort of glad to be reading this, because this is something I had felt, and this is another reason why I like reading his stuff, is because he puts words to things that I've often felt but I couldn't articulate, or I didn't have enough of awareness or consciousness about it to put words to it. And that's one of his great gifts. And so he's basically saying that we are aggressive by nature. That is how we have elevated ourselves from just another animal in the animal kingdom to having the sort of control over agriculture and food and our survival and the luxuries that we have. So lots of good things have come out of it, but also, of course, lots of bad things. We have, our political systems of power and control all over the world, and that's not going anywhere. And it's always been there. Any civilization, Roman, Egyptian, Greek, it's a lot of the same patterns and a lot of the same stories. So we have this aggressiveness And we are also told in civilized society that we're not supposed to do that, or we're not supposed to have that. And so we repress it. And for the most part, or not for the most part, but in a lot of cases, that kind of aggression is pretty ugly. We see it and we don't like it. It's very distasteful when we see somebody sort of bullying their way or bulldozing their way through other people. It's not something we want in our society. So when we feel our own aggression, we oftentimes repress it. And in doing so, that will make us passive aggressive. A lot of times we don't even realize that this is what we're doing. Some of us don't repress our aggression. We indulge it, some of us. And in indulging it, it can become very addictive because it feels like power. The more power we experience, the more we want. And we see that, in society as well, and in political systems, and also in aristocracies and oligarchies. It's never enough. The more power you experience, the more you want. There's the two extremes, right? There's like the real passive aggressive people, and then there's the sort of active aggressive people. And a lot of times the active aggressive people don't mind displaying their aggression. They don't care if you judge them or not, because they're so aggressive that if you get in their way, they're just going to push right past you as well. So what is the resolution to all of this? Is it just that we stay in some sort of balance, balancing our passive aggressive tendencies with our active aggressive tendencies? Well, what Robert Greene says, and I completely agree with this, and this is almost kind of like a no-brainer. It's the start of resolving anything, and that is to accept this about ourselves. Accept that we are aggressive by nature, because if we don't accept it, then it's going to come out some way. And when it comes out, it's either going to make us really dislike ourselves, or we will repress it, we'll push it away, and then we'll become passive aggressive and might not even realize it. So it's accepting this about ourselves and then finding an outlet for it, a productive outlet for it. And I remember going through this, and this was before I read Robert Greene. I was doing a lot of yoga. I've been doing yoga for years. And one of the things for me that yoga does is it really frees a lot of tension in your body. And when you free that tension from your body, you free up a lot of energy. So I had all this energy sort of swirling around inside of me, and I didn't always have a very productive outlet for it. And it started to turn into aggression. I could feel it, like even just driving and people cutting me off and feeling road rage. And sometimes even with my kids, which I hate to admit, but it was true. And so I thought to myself, I've got to do something different. And I had this idea of doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I just felt like for some reason that would be a productive outlet for that aggression. And I wasn't certain that this was going to work, but it worked beautifully. It worked incredibly well. And so I still practice Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to this day. And one of the reasons why it works so well for me, and it might not work very well for you, but you might want to give it a try in case it does. It gives me expression for that aggression. I can express the aggression in a controlled environment that has rules. People can get hurt, but that's not the idea. And you're likely not to get hurt, and you're likely not to hurt anyone else because it's very controlled. At the same time I get my aggression humbled, because there's always plenty of people in the dojo who are better than me. And so I get to express that aggression, but I also get it humbled by giving it its proper place. That, if I got really aggressive with some of these people, they would take me out really, really fast. I'd have a broken arm, or they would choke me out or something like that. It's humbling to know, like, yeah, if you indulge in that aggression too much, you can feel powerful and bigger than what you are. And you're going to get smacked down really hard. And so I put myself in this environment where it is controlled, where I can give expression to my aggression, and at the same time, I can have it humbled at the same time. This is just one area, and it's not like every time I feel aggressive, I have the opportunity to run to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practice. What it also helps me do, though, is it helps me generalize that expression and that control and that humility into the other areas of my life when I might be feeling aggressive. I can then say, okay, I'm going to accept this about myself. And then I ask myself, what kind of expression can I give this so that it will be productive, so that it won't hurt other people, and so that and for the most part, can feel fulfilling and satisfying. The best time to do this, the best time to become aware of your aggression and accept this part of yourself, and to figure out a better solution for it, is not to wait until you're feeling aggressive, whether that's passive or active aggressive. you should do that now. Like, think of times when you were either passive aggressive or active aggressive, and then ask yourself, what are three possibilities, three different ways that I could have directed that energy in a better way and expressed it in a way that was more productive. If you find yourself saying, well, no, I don't have those tendencies, I've never been aggressive. So while it's true that there are definitely some people who are more aggressive than others, in general, they have more of that in their nature. Everyone has this to an extent. The more you can start to recognize it in yourself, that's that acceptance. Like, I can think back of times where, yes, I acted passive aggressively, or I can think of times when I acted active aggressively. And by being able to call that out, that is the beginning of the acceptance of this. Think about those times and just it's not about judging yourself. It's not about punishing yourself or trying to make yourself feel bad. It's just about coming to terms with it. And the more you can do this, the less likely you will act that way again, because you're finally accepting this about yourself and you go, okay, yeah, I know I can do this. I know I could get wrapped up in the tendency to behave this way, but if I accept this, then I know that it's not how I want to be, then I'm less likely to do that in the future. The other thing that this is really good for is it's really good for recognizing this in other people. When you see other people acting passive aggressively or active aggressively, and you've already accepted this about yourself, you've already accepted that this is just part of your nature, you're going to become more accepting of other people. And I don't mean accepting as condoning bad behavior or being okay with other people's bad behavior, but you're looking beyond their behavior and you're seeing more of who they really are. And that will help you deal with those people so much better. So accept that aggression is part of your nature as a species. It's not your fault. So just accept that that's there, and then find ways that you can express it productively. Express it through passion, express it through the things that you're motivated to do. And if you can find ways to also humble that aggression, and the way that, like I found with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, that, I know there are people who can beat me up really bad. And some of these people are not the people you would expect. They're not the biggest people. They're not the most angry, mean looking people. So what are ways that you can sort of humble that aggression by understanding that it's not the big thing that it feels that it is. It's not the powerful thing that it feels like it can be. When you really indulge it, it can feel very powerful. It can go to your ego. And then it can feel like you're bigger than who you are. And so what would be ways that you can sort of humble that and put aggression in its proper place? Because it can be very useful. And if we just repress it, it's only going to create problems. But if we can use that aggression to drive us forward, as long as we're not hurting other people, your aggression can be a real resource for you. If you like this video and you want to take these sort of understandings about who you are and how who you are creates the life that you're living, go down to the description right here down below. There's a link for an assessment. And when you take that assessment, it'll help you get clarity and help you get specific about what it is, how you want to change yourself, to improve yourself, and which will inevitably have an effect on your entire life. Check out that link there. Like I said, it's an assessment and you'll get the results back, and it'll help you focus on where you want it to go next. Also, if you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button and click the bell so you'll be notified when I put new videos out. And last but not least, if you can think of a friend or a family member who would benefit from this video, make sure you share it with them. Take care.